there, welcome back. I'm going to look at 3 Christopher Guest films today, which are the 3 most recent films he's made, which is A Mighty Wind, For Your Consideration and Mascots. Now there's other earlier films I'm going to get to later, some of the earlier films, but I'm just doing these ones just now. Now, Christopher Guest, you probably know best from Spinal Tap, because he was one of the directors. Well, he wasn't director of that one, but he's one of the writers and performers. And they're doing a Spinal Tap 2 coming this year at some point. So I thought it was good to go back and watch some of his films. Now, Guest had a kind of weird career. He was on like 1 season on Saturday Night Live. He's directed some mainstream films, none of which have done very well, which is like, he did one, I think, with Chris Farley, I think, or there was Matthew Perry, I think. That didn't work, and he did a Tyler the 5th Foot Woman remake as well, which didn't work. So when he does the conventional things, it doesn't seem to fit him very well. But he does these sort of things that people call mockumentaries, which are not, because it implies something that he's looking down on these people, which isn't the case in these films. But he does this thing where it's an observational thing where there is a story to get from A to B, but a lot of the work's in the character. I think he's much more comfortable with that than trying to follow a plot and get jokes from that. He'd much rather watch people and kind of observe them in their environment and watch what they do and their absurdities and their strangeness. Of course, sometimes it works better in some films than others. Well, there's one film in this bunch that I don't think really works in lots of ways, but I like two of the other ones. And I really like his elder films, like The Big Picture, the Wait for Guffman, and The One with the Dogs, which I can't remember the title of just now, best show. But I'll get to them another time. But I'll start off with A Mighty Wind, which is my favourite of these 3 films. And in some ways it's my favourite of his films, because I think it really works. It really looks at these folk singers who all come from the 60s, who were big then for a short time, and then they just sort of fell away. And they've all kind of still hanging on in some ways to the past, but the world's moved on. So they're having a live event to pay tribute to a guy who used to run the company that put out their records and promoted them. So they're going to bring back all of these artists who were popular for a time and fell away, and now they're kind of bringing them back. And it's a look at what happened to them after their peak of fame and how coming back to do this one concert affects them. And it's about just the variety of how people approach their art. So you have 3 different bands. You have one band which is more commercial, led by Paul Dooley, and he's like he was this guy who got into this band, and this big band, a very kind of populist folk song, and he's kept up. He's replaced the members over time, and now he's a new version of that band with lots of people who are into that kind of music who love it, including like Parker Posey and Gene Lynch as 2 of the band members. And you find a lot of them, most of these band members are kind of strange and very odd, but they're really into the music and they really want to do this. But the music has a kind of commercial base. They're trying to be popular. They're trying to reach people and show what folk music can be. So to the other people in the concert, they're the sellouts. They're the ones who are like, don't talk about those people, they're embarrassing. The other ones think they're artists and think they're just, these other people are just the sellouts. So then you have a trio band with Christopher Guest, Harry Shearer and Michael McKean, the Spinal Tap Boys, playing this band which they actually created after Spinal Tap, and they actually had this fake folk band as the warming act for Spinal Tap. They never did tours of Spinal Tap, and no one could tell that it was the same people doing this than they was doing Spinal Tap. And people get really bored and fed up with them, and annoyed everybody that were doing these folksman characters. But also in it, you also have this duo, this romantic duo played by Jean Levy and Catherine O'Hara, who are who were the stars of the folk scene in the 60s. They were like they had a romantic thing going on, and then they kind of the lead singer disappeared and went a bit mad, played by Jean Levy, and no one can quite understand it. Like, they all talk about him as if he's this genius, and then he was off a bus and he's this mad guy played by Jean Levy, who's just strange, which is part of the fun part of the joke. Is like, this is the guy they're all talking about. This weirdo is what they're talking about. But as the story progresses, as you see how Catherine O'Hara's character has moved on, and now she's married to this guy who's rich, but he does something that she has no interest in whatsoever, and how the kind of attraction to Jean Levy's character is kind of making her miss her past. Well, for Jean Levy, you're never quite sure, is he into her or is he not? And it leads to a wonderful ending, which I will not divulge, but it is, the payoff really works. The other narrative is basically the folksmen are basically guys who are always the middle of the road in appreciation, like they were the cult figures, and they remain so. They're the kind of they're the craftsmen of the scene. They enjoy it. It allows those three actors to have fun with each other, playing, the variety of strange characters who are very much into what they're into, but they don't really care if no one else likes it. And that has a lot of legs too, because they find some fun things talking about how they've kind of slowly fallen away. And but there were big ones, and they're kind of okay with the lot in life. It's like they're not that bothered. They've all lost their hair. None of them are. But one of them's got a kind of weird wig. Michael keeps this weird wig thing that says he's lost his hair, but he's not going to admit to it. It just works. It's just this thing of it's a nice low level vibe to this. And even the commercial band, they're not that strange. They're strange, but they're in a very quiet way. The strangest one of the organisers, led by Bob Aberlan. He's a sister who's very emotional about it, and he's a brother who could not care less. But he's a kind of, Bob Aberlan's a kind of control freak. He wants everything done his own way, and he's annoying other people. And it's a very kind of quiet movie. It builds up slowly but sure. There's no massive big things happening. It's just the slow accumulation of detail about this world, and you just enjoy being in this world. And they eventually get to the concert. The concert happens. There are a couple of things happen, but it's not a big melodramatic ending. It's just stuff happens, and it just works. It's one of those films that just works. Like, part of this charm is how quiet it is, and how a lot of the details that are important are there, but they're not like putting your face all the time. They're there, they're built up, and then everyone gets a kind of a satisfying conclusion for what the characters are. Not happy endings, just like, this is what their characters are. And I bring this up because now I'm going to go into For Your Consideration, which doesn't do this very well. I think For Your Consideration is viewed as his weakest film, and to be honest, I know why. It's one of those films you want to like more than you actually like. It's got a lot of good things in it, but it's also a bit broader than normal. And because in this one he's taking a look at has-been actors in this movie getting shot, this kind of period movie that suddenly gets Oscar buzz and they start to go slowly mad. It's a bit broader because the goals they're trying to reach are a bit higher, and sometimes the satire they're doing of the Hollywood world is a bit obvious and a bit cartoonish, and it's like it doesn't have the sense of absurdity within some sort of locked in reality that you can believe for this film. And this one, it feels too broad, because if you know the gossip rags in Hollywood, what they're doing with Jane Lynch and Fred Willard as the gossip people seems too broad. And everything just in the film they're making, which is a very Jewish film that suddenly gets lost Oscar buzz, is obviously taking the kind of prestige movie of the 2000s, the kind of Weinstein prestige movie, but it feels a bit too weird and too old-fashioned and too locked in a different era that it doesn't quite gel as real satire. It just feels like it's a bit old-fashioned for what was actually going on at the time. And there's just that sense of everything's a bit too broad. Like, Gene Levy plays the agent of one of the characters, and he's the usual schmucky agent, but he's very competent at it, and he's not very good. And they've got a press agent that's way behind the technology, but too much. Like, it's almost like certain characters are too in their own headspace that means they don't quite work. And there's a sense of this whole film is like a world is pushed into a world that doesn't quite belong. It might have worked better if it was set in the 80s or something. You know, rather than what was happening now. It just feels old-fashioned in a way, which doesn't quite work. And the performances are all good. Catherine O'Hara plays the lead actress who's been in hacky movies, and she finally got a chance to be in a prestige movie, and she lets it go to her head. Parker Posey is playing the daughter of her character in the film they're making. She's just this kind of edgy comedian who's trying to be respectable, but also is getting caught up in the excitement of maybe getting an Oscar nomination, what it could do for a career. The leading man, played by Harry Shearer, is this guy who's been doing all these gimmicky commercials for years, and this is his chance to finally show himself as a proper actor again. And there's this other guy who's playing the son character who everyone ignores, and who obviously has all the talent. So there's this thing going on, but when you watch the scenes of filming, it's too broad. The scenes are too broad. It's like, this would not get any attention. This would be sent to video straight away. There's not. They try to do this for comedy, but the scene just they're shooting would never have any Oscar potential. And the whole Oscar thing, it starts out as a revenge prank against the lead actress because she's been bitchy to the cinematographer. And so the whole thing spirals out of just like tensions on set and a prank, but then it gets taken seriously, and eventually you get this thing where Catherine O'Hara gets her Botox in her face can't move, and Parker Posey's kind of a meltdown of seriousness, like, I'm not being supported. And Harry Shearer's just glad to finally be able to talk to people and tries to act too hip for his own good. So there's all these things that are funny, and you've got and Christopher Guest is the director who's not very good, who lets actors do what they want and isn't following the script, driving the script is mental. So there's lots of fun things. You've got the executives played by Ricky Gervais and I can't remember the other one was, Larry Miller, who are coming in and changing the film. So you have lots of things that could work, but everything's just a bit broad. And the ending kind of doesn't work because it's like you go to 6 months later, what's happening with these people? They don't get the Oscar nominations and they go back to their failed lives. But the thing is, they make the film sound as if it had a chance. So you're thinking, well, if they were up for nomination and didn't get them, they'd still get TV shows or something out of it. But instead, no, they go back to their lives and don't get anywhere. And he's like, that wouldn't happen. That's if he'd gone 2 years later and nothing had happened and they're back to these things, that would have made sense. But 6 months just felt like just after the release of the film, it just feels like you're stretching the plot to make your points, but you're not actually making them a very kind of satisfying way. So the whole film just feels too broad, really, and it's a shame because there are good performances here and there are some nice moments, but everything just feels like it's not quite coming together. Like, there's too many notes. It feels like just like the aiming's a bit off in this one, in a way that guests never seem to miss in other films. I don't know, if they had too much money, I don't know what happened. Mascots is more of a return to form. It's not as good as some of his earlier films, but it's a lot better than Your Consideration. So this is a Netflix film from 2016. It didn't get that great reviews, but actually watching it now, years later, I was like, this is a solid film. It doesn't have all of Christopher Guest's actors in it. Some of them, like Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara, both on a TV show at that point, so they couldn't do it. So, and people were complaining they weren't there. But there's a lot of new actors in, like Chris O'Dowd plays the lead, played this guy who's a mascot for sports teams. He's pretty violent. And basically it gives guests a chance to use other younger actors who are not as well known at the time and do something interesting, which is all these people who are mascots for their teams and what it takes to be a mascot, and they're going to do this competition thing to who's the best mascot, and they've all put their hopes up to this to be the best mascot. And you see how absurd some of it is, but how talented other people are. Like, some people are actually talented and some people are delusional. Parker Posey plays a character who's completely delusional. She's a mascot, but she's like a extreme artist who thinks all of her musings are interesting when they're really not. And she's got this weird relationship with her half-sister, where she thinks she's a talented one, but her half-sister's probably got more talent. You've got a family from London who are coming over, and they have traditions of the grandfather's a mascot, the father's a mascot, the son's a mascot, and the son is full of faux pas, but he's actually quite good at what he does. But he's rubbish in life, but he's good at this one thing. And you've just all these other characters that just slowly float through the film that all just work. And you've also got the organisers of this thing that try and make the mascot competition something that could be televised next year, and they've got all these delusions of importance, which is silly because it's just a silly competition. So this is much more gets back to what he did before really well, which is people who are really into something who can't step out of it to realise it's just your hobby. It's not that important. It's just something that brings you joy, so just enjoy it. And of course they just have to take it too seriously. But again, one of the things in The Mighty Wind and this and Mascots was he obviously likes the people he's creating. He likes even the absurdity of some of these characters and how strange they are and how bizarre they are. He has obviously an affection for the characters. I mean, the end of A Mighty Wind is moving. Mascots does have a nice feel to it. There's a sense of you do like the people. I mean, For Your Consideration, probably lesser of that than that. Like, you're feeling as some of these people he's writing about in that film, he's worked with and have annoyed the hell out of him. But no, these other ones, it just tend to seem to like the people. So it's not really mocking. I mean, that's the thing. I guess always never have liked mockumentary description because it does suggest a kind of superiority, which I don't think films have. I think they're just like, they're really interested in these people who are just obsessed with their thing. And that just comes through in Mascots. It's like, the people just don't know they're funny. They just are just in dysfunctional situations. There's a couple who are both mascots who are having a crumbling marriage because the wife's too controlling, the husband has a kind of wandering eye because of that, and it's like, it's a marriage that's not going to last, but they're doing their damnedest to keep it going even outside of any sanity. And that's contrasted with the family from London, who the husband and wife actually do like each other and are happy together. You know, so you see different variations of interactions. And you've also got the ex-mascots who, you know, played by Jane Lynch and a bunch of other people who are all Ed Begley Jr., who are revealed in the past as being these great mascots, even though it's like, you were just a mascot, it wasn't that important, but this is their claim to fame, and it's just a sense of sadness about, this is where your life is, this is what you're so obsessed by. So it's just a film about that kind of feeling of people who take their lives too seriously and are not enjoying it as well as they should, because it's meant a competition. Like, lots of things in life are being in competitions when they don't need to be. It can just be something you enjoy. But these are still very enjoyable films. Definitely see Mascots on Netflix. It's definitely worth a shot. Mighty Wind, I would highly recommend. It's really good. For Your Consideration is worth watching, but I just don't think it's quite the same level. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you later. Bye for now.